Good afternoon, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here, and we're proud that Artlist is the creative sponsor for South by Southwest 2026. And what an incredible year for creatives and creativity in our world. At Artlist, we've been operating at the intersection of creativity and technology for the past decade. We watched the creator economy build from the ground up, transforming how stories are being told, produced, and shared across the world. And now we're on the verge of the next chapter of creativity. We all feel it. AI is unlocking creative possibilities that creators could only dream about just a year ago. It's introducing new workflows and changing what teams and individuals can produce on their own. And while the opportunity comes with a lot of hesitation and fear, we already see the professional industry starting to adapt and adopt. So I think we can say AI isn't here to replace our job as creators. So today we want to focus on how AI can actually make creative work better, what happens when visionary creators use it to leverage and amplify their ideas, what is the current state of AI adoption across the industry, and because the real question is not whether AI will become part of the creative workflow, I think it already is. The real question is how we're going to shape it. And to discuss all this, I have three very distinguished guests here today. Christina Lee Storm, give it for her, Chad Nelson, and Joshua Davies. So let's dive right in. Maybe introduce yourselves in a few words. Tell us about your journey and what excites you today with AI and creativity.
Great. Thank you so much, Ori, and thank you for Artlist for having us, and thank all of you guys for being here. My journey, actually, I come from film producer, independent film. So being at South by is great. And along the way, I stepped into visual effects. I thought it was like the wrong detour, but it actually has proven to be essential, having an understanding of computer graphics. And made my way over to DreamWorks Animation, over feature animation, as well as running the advanced creative technology team, where we were really at that point like looking at ways of integrating emerging tech with world building franchises. If you have something like a Kung Fu Panda or a How to Train Your Dragon, how do you like expand that world alongside a feature? So we were doing a lot of interactive and immersive types of experiences, and went back to producing. I actually have a film that we filmed during COVID, and it's actually now coming out next month. It's called Newborn. It's starring David Oyelowo and Nate Parker, who directed Birth of a Nation. He's the director, so it's coming out now, and there's an interesting distribution model on that. Made my way over to Netflix, where I help run virtual production on the streaming side, production innovation, and now I'm over at, I have my own company as well called Playbook PLBK. My partner's Annie Hanlon, and then I'm over at Secret Level as head of studio narrative, and that ties into your last question about like what am I excited about. I kind of like what's really neat is every week, I feel like I'm blown away. My mind is blown away, and I work in the space of generative AI and production, and it's really remarkable some of the things that are happening. I get excited about how do I help. I've always been in the intersection of like emerging tech and what people want to they're innovators, and then traditional production, and usually studio system, and I'm always kind of bridging the gap, like how do I pull it together constantly? And so I think I get really excited about what's going to happen for Hollywood in the sense of using emerging technology. I'm also, as a independent filmmaker at heart, I think it's an amazing time for filmmakers to think about a story that they've always wanted to tell. And we've heard this before, but I have to say it. It's like, I think your stories are really important, and I think you'll have an opportunity to tell them. where we really didn't have that opportunity. When I was starting in the business, you had to have a lot of things and a lot of people and a lot of money. And so I think that's exciting, and I'm really excited about helping to lead the industry as well as the new creator economy through this next iteration of creativity and innovation. So thanks for having me.
Amazing. Thank you for being here. Chad.
Hello, everyone. I'm Chad Nelson. I'm at OpenAI. But I've been a creative director my entire career. I actually started in film and television. I can age myself. My very first job, I applied at Samuel Goldwyn Company because I wanted to get into independent film. And Kenneth Branagh had just finished Henry V. And I was like, oh, I can't wait. I would love to make some Shakespearean films. And they're like, great, we're going to hire you. We're going to put you in the TV division. And I walked in and they said, your first job is going to be American Gladiators. And so kind of the opposite of Shakespeare, but the antithesis there. That said, I soon found that my early journey in LA was that although there was amazing talent for storytelling, the technology and how technology played a role with storytelling and media production had really not matured in Los Angeles yet. And so when the birth of the internet began, I realized that I actually could go in and help studios build essentially early web pages. Like instead of just taking newspaper listings on, that you'd have just literally in the ad in the paper and just putting showtimes, like could we actually use the web to actually tell a story about the film and market it in a brand new way? And so started a company, sold that, started 2 more companies and sold those both, doing different technology plays. And so the through line of my career has always been how new technology applies to entertainment or interactivity. So I'll fast forward to basically COVID, when many people, I think, were looking at, I think we all had a little more time than normal. And I was very curious to see how AI could be applied to video games, especially in script writing. So lost a lot of time playing Red Dead Redemption 2 with my son, and we loved it, and then we were so frustrated when we basically conquered or finished it. And at that time, OpenAI had launched a thing called GPT-2, so not ChatGPT, still early on, and that was in 2021. And I was very interested if that could actually help write dialogue for the game and basically keep the script and the story going. And started experimenting with that. And OpenAI at that time was like this little startup in this little building in San Francisco, and they had about 300 people. And so when I wrote them, I really didn't get a lot of help. They were focused on AGI and research and so forth. But then they launched DALL-E 2, or announced DALL-E 2 in April of 2022. And it was the first time that they said that outside of a white paper, that we'd have a text-to-image model that would be released to the public. And so I wrote them and said, if this is actually accurate, what you have predicted, or this thing that you're promising, I don't know if you realize it, but it's going to transform creativity forever. As much as Photoshop did in the 90s, this is going to be the next thing that literally disrupts and changes the whole fabric of the industry, in almost every industry. They're like, oh, that's really fascinating. We'd love to see then what you think. Would you like access? Turns out I was one of the first 30 people to have access. And I got lost in DALL-E 2 for like 8 hours making just characters and building a world, which ended up being this little thing called Critters. So a few months later, I pitched OpenAI and said, hey, I think we can make a movie with DALL-E 2. They're like, well, DALL-E 2 is just an image generation system. How are you going to make a movie? I said, well, I think if you're comfortable, I could put the art into Unreal Engine, do some facial performance capture, and then in After Effects, and we could bring it to life, but it would all be DALL-E art that would generate all the imagery. They're like, oh, okay, that's great. When can you start? And I thought, okay, this is going to be like months of pitching. I think pitching products or concepts, it takes forever. The project was funded. I pitched it on Monday. We were funded by Friday. We went into production 2 weeks later, casting and everything, and then we launched it. And it was fun. It got into a number of film festivals, won some awards, and so forth. Anyway, OpenAI then hired me as a creative specialist, which I didn't know what that really meant. They said, what do you do? I'm like, I don't know. I'm kind of a creative specialist. They're like, great, that's your title. Here we go. And so really what my role at OpenAI is basically I work with research to see what new tools and models are coming off the kind of the early pipeline. I play with them, I break them, I give them honest feedback, and which is insanely fun because I feel like I'm living about 4 to 6 months in the future, which is kind of a crazy place to live. But in addition to that, then the other half of my job is I spend a lot of time in the industry talking to companies about what do these tools mean, how do you use them, what can they not do, like what are the real fears that you should have or the ethical concerns, and like really dispelling a lot of the myths. And really just kind of being that educator for many media and entertainment companies, but now it's also marketing agencies and fashion companies and all sorts of companies that are basically looking at how to use these tools for creativity or creative workflows. So great to be here. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Josh.
Wow, my voice is going to be providing like the comedy element of this. It's not because I've been partying. This happened on the plane over. And this is my recovered voice. So, yeah, I'm Josh. I'm Chief Innovation Officer. I'm not sure what that means exactly, but I've got 25 years in basically making software for filmmakers. I started a company that allowed you to make Star Wars at home, mixture of like Premiere and After Effects. It ended up being used by about 7 million, mainly young people around the world, to have a voice and be able to create things that they otherwise wouldn't have been able to create, with the cost being the main barrier there, and maybe even information on how to use the tools. And then 5 years ago, I joined Artlist, and I now find myself in this strange position of, I'm a failed creator. I was never as good as the creators that use my software. I'm hopefully a bit better on the technology side, and now I get this sort of Doc Brown kind of role where I sit there and I look at all of the different AI that's coming out and how we can string that together into what might be a cohesive product for creatives to use as a tool. And it's very much for creatives to use as a tool. Again, echoing what you said at the start, it's not about replacing creatives. Creatives are more centered to this story than anything. I mean, it's like the AI requires the creative. It does not get on and do things without the creative. So it's like making tools that you can use, and we've all been through these different phases of tools coming out, changing the industry. It's just this is doing it on a larger scale. But yeah, at Artlist, I think what we're trying to create is that set of tools that enables creatives to do something that they couldn't do yesterday. Not take away jobs, just enable people.
Yeah, so I think it's very clear from all of your intros that the excitement you share about AI is very different than the headlines we read about it. And of course, it's a very well-discussed subject. So I'm curious, what is the real discussion you guys hear in your industry and day-to-day work currently?
You know, I talk with folks in the studios, all, you know, throughout my week, production companies, folks that are in, you know, industry professionals. I'm a governor for the Television Academy, Emerging Media Programming Peer Group, so I get a lot of insight and hear the concerns. Right now, the big topic, kind of being led by the Creators Coalition, is creators' rights and all of those things. And it centers around like intellectual property. And so I think that to some degree, there's a need to address and sort of be aware of those concerns that are bubbling up from industry professionals. At the same time, I see folks that are avid, like users in, you know, they're working in tools, you know, throughout their entire day, and they are creating some amazing things. And I think that side is also very excited. And so I think you have this widening chasm I've talked about before, but and that kind of concerns me because I think there is a way to everyone to be able to create and to exist. And I think the long game is a sustainable ecosystem, right? A lot of things beyond just the tools exist because it's distribution, it's compensation, it's all these things that are happening. But I definitely think that folks, this year will be the year of engagement, much more so with studios and production companies. You know, for me, I help walk through projects, whether it's television shows or films or whatnot. And very similar to what we were doing in virtual production, you need to have those conversations early because it's a collaborative conversation. It's really being smart about, hey, how do we want to step into film production, television production in a way that is maximizing a tool, yet enabling the key creatives to actually figure out ways in which they can do work. So there's a lot of conversations. It's very buzzy, from fully synthetic work all the way to hybrid. What's interesting over at Secret Level is that for narrative, we focus on 3 areas. Originals, we have our Secret Level originals. We have co-productions that we work with a lot of different A-listers. And then we do specialized and strategic projects. But what's amazing about Jason Zada, who's the founder and chief creative officer, he's constantly on the box. He's putting things out. And that's a little bit of our way of testing out the technology and testing out even our in-house, we have an in-house production workflow called Liquid Engine. So, I see it from things that are like, amazing. You just look them up and you'll see, and then to like more toe dipping into things like, can we do this that would normally be VFX? And that's okay. You could do that, but I think that's sort of avoiding maybe a bigger conversation.
Yeah. Chad?
Yeah, I'll say, or at least I'll add to it, is, I think the first time I was invited by a studio was in 2023 to come speak, and one of the things they said is, like, you cannot say a word that you're even here. You can't post about it, you can't talk about it, and actually, internally, we're not even saying it's an AI talk. It's like, anyway, it was just, that was the vibe then. And then I'll fast forward to, and I just there was an industry event just, 2 weeks ago, and the whole thing was all about AI, whereas the last year's annual meeting, they could not discuss it at all. So it's definitely shifted within the industry. But I think what's also interesting is, so if studios are now talking about it and wanting to learn and they're curious, and to see how it can apply to their current workflows and production pathways, I'm also seeing, I think what's interesting on the filmmaker side is either young, up-and-coming filmmakers, and we've partnered with Film Independent to basically sponsor films, and Tribeca Film Festival as well, to basically sponsor a few films, and to see young talent coming in who've never maybe even made a film, and help sponsor and give them tools. And then on the flip side, I've seen some of like literally my film heroes come and call me and say, hey, I'd love to just have a meeting and learn. And so I'm seeing it now from multiple directions, from the big companies to, again, the individuals, from just starting to the most expertise. And I just find that there's a lot of curiosity. I'm still waiting to see, as many people say, like the first Toy Story or that first great work that hasn't emerged. I think we've seen a lot of interesting shorts and a lot of interesting demos. But it reminds me a lot of early 3D before Toy Story, where just a lot of people were making really cool, slick special effects reels, but we hadn't really seen the epic story that moved us yet. And I think that's where I see that I think we are right now in this industry.
Yeah, I would agree, just to add that. And I think long form, and that's the space I work in, is like the game changes significantly from maybe an ad or a short or whatnot. And at Secret Level, there's 2 different parts of our company. We have brands and then narrative. But I think that's where we're all waiting, and there's projects, lots of different projects that are in development that are long form. But the stakes go up increasingly just with workflow, production process, storytelling. So, that's...
consistency has been hard historically.
Historically.
In this space, yeah. And you all have tools that are helping with that. I think the other thing is, it's like we still can't direct a Thanksgiving table with an AI tool yet, where you have 12 people, you say this, you're passing this, you're fighting about this, the dog's under the table. Like, I can't do that with an AI tool. It just gets muddy almost instantly, and maybe I could throw hundreds of gens at it and I get lucky, a few times, but we're just not there yet. So you have to direct around the limitations, which also means, until I think more recently, long form would have been really hard. And almost it would have been hard to watch as even an audience.
I asked the question, like, why don't we just shoot it? Right?
At some
I mean,
point,
we
it's
could
so
just
hard.
shoot it,
Yeah.
you know.
So you guys kind of jumped into our second question, which was what kind of problems do we see in actual integration of AI into the workflows, both, I think, technically and artistically. But maybe you want to elaborate about it a little bit more, and Josh, maybe tell us about what we're building at Artlist to solve these problems.
Yeah, we're going to solve all of them. No, yeah, I think the thing that we're mainly seeing when we look at the user base that we have is that control. It's all well and good being able to write a prompt and something gets spat out the other end that maybe does follow what you wrote in the prompt, but like our users are all about the intention of what they're putting together and, you know, the nuance that they want. You know, a cinematographer coming to it wants to move the camera by 3 inches and not describe that by writing it in. They may want to change that light that if they're on set is actually behind the camera, they want to put it 1 foot up, but they have no way of expressing this through AI. So I think a lot of what we're trying to focus on is just adding an extra element of control, because that's what all of our users really, really desire. It's hard, and there's going to be an awful lot of stuff that happens this year in particular that will allow us to build that application layer over the top. But it is, again, about those people who are not going to make, you know, AI slop. These are creators that are going to make amazing things, and they're already the people making the most amazing things with AI, as creators who have an understanding of all of the traditional elements of filmmaking. We're going to be able to add that extra level of nuance and control on top of the models that gives them the really feel of like creative power over what they're producing, and I think that's really important.
Yeah, and I think you touched on a very important subject of control. I think because 25 was kind of the year, I call it the year of wonder, like the generative AI exploded, mainly in visual and music, and it's like a wonder if something can be born out of thin air, right, and be like almost like a complete creation. But without control, there's basically no creative process, right? So I think it's interesting to discuss if you imagine a world, let's say probably in a few months from now, with a much more AI-assisted workflow for video production, where do you see the creative vision staying, or how does it change the responsibility of the creator or his role in the creation?
Yeah, it's interesting because we do talk about control. I'm going to throw a crazy curveball. I think that there will be filmmakers that will say, I have control because I'm going to make what I want to make, that I can make, tell my story within the confines of the tools. We've done this from the birth of computer graphics, you know, and the way in which, you know, even how computer graphics works and that whole workflow is a certain way. That also gets sort of thrown out the window when we're dealing with video. And I think there will be, it's almost a different approach for filmmakers that we'll see. Folks that have really strong story, a story that they can tell that they want to share, that resonates with audiences, and they will be, I'm going to control whatever the tools are going to allow me to and be able to get my story out. It's almost I kind of want to tease it out like a slightly different approach.
Yeah, it's also very exciting, right? It's a new opportunity.
Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, you definitely have control in the story that you get to tell. But the problem is you're working with the worst foreign film crew you've ever hired. And you don't speak their language. And so in a certain degree, you're like working with sign language, showing, no, this is what I want the camera to do. And that's not an 18 millimeter lens. Oh, no, that's a 20. Okay, that's not the lens either. Okay, let's just get the shot. And I think that's what a lot of these productions are like, is it's a slot machine of happy accidents, and you hope you can control it enough that if it is that plinko ball or chip going down the thing, that it lands at least in one of those few slots. Now, it's going to get better than that. But it is interesting, like if someone came from the 3D world where, and I'm sure you've experienced it at Netflix and the animation or DreamWorks with all this, it's like there are people that just want to control the knuckle. Like exactly, here's exactly how I want you to grab this thing and do that. And then the camera spine's perfect, and then I want to change the lighting, and I need it to be exact every single time. And like this medium is frustrating for that person because it's not
100%. This is a very important conversation. Yes.
Yeah, because it's literally, it's like live action. As much as it might look like animation or look like computer graphics or video game, and yes, you can do some live action, but it is literally like, okay, let's do take one. Okay, shoot, really didn't give enough instruction. Okay, so take two, and I change my prompt, and I might put a little bit more imagery in or something, and it's just like nuts.
Or in the AI production world, a plane's flown by, some elements coming at you, and it is a lot more like live action anomalies, and that's the thing that I think the conversation piece is like, we're trying to make it like this. It's like, why are we making it like this? Because that's how it was done before. I would like to actually offer up to like young filmmakers, and we judge a lot of different AI films. I think that there's an opportunity for filmmakers to really like do it the way they want to, you know. And yeah, it's funny because it's like you'll roll a gen, and it's like, wait, why is the person who was initially starting in the scene then back in the scene when they walk through the door or something? And it's like, it's just...
Or two of them. But yeah. I mean, I'm curious from your perspective, is that there is a certain beauty in that improvisation that happens, the creativity. I always joke, at OpenAI we joke, we're like, where's the creativity slider? Because sometimes you want it to just give you the unexpected, and other times you want the precision. And I think that'd be curious also. It's just like, how do you balance from a tools and workflows for the person that wants, you know, those both modes? Because we definitely need both those modes.
Yeah, I think from what we're focusing on right now, it is on I mean, we've got that mode, the random mode already. Yeah. That is AI. We have that covered. I think what we're trying to do with our user base at Artlist, who typically are professional from, you know, very much like a high-end YouTube all the way through all of the very varied video industries, all the way up to the sort of top-tier stuff that we're talking about here. And because they come from those traditional backgrounds, I mean, traditional is like a year ago, right? Like they come from any background prior to AI. They have the bits that they want to do the way they expect doing it. And writing in a prompt is not that. Writing in a prompt is a new thing I have to learn. Maybe I became a video creative to avoid writing things as well in general. And I love what I do. It's not like I like it, I love it. This is like my main thing. So I think for us, not only is it how do we improve that experience so it is maybe more like the other professional tools that they use where they feel they do have control, but it's also what can we do to actually take, you know, human takes, other things that they've done into it, and then just give them the power of AI on top of that. So, you know, like literally like real world human performances driving the AI so they can have the control that they want. It's just they can film it in their living room if they want to and make it anywhere in the world.
Yeah, and that actually, I want to show you guys something. This is something we're discussing a lot at Artlist, and we kind of just see it in-house, that we call this the new circular workflow, right? Because the workflow used to be ideation, scripting, casting, producing, post-producing. It was very hard to go back, right? Like after you film something, almost impossible. And all of a sudden, the distance between idea and the actual production is it's not even zero, it's circular, you can go around. And I think this opens up a very interesting opportunity for new up-and-coming creators, filmmakers, or just people with great ideas. And you can basically imagine a kid making the next Stranger Things in his basement in a few years, right? So how do you see that impacting the industry? And also, how do you see the major companies reacting? I want to add one more note before you answer. I think in a way, we saw this because I come from music. We already saw this revolution happen with music 20 years ago, because once digital production became available, all of a sudden you could create Grammy-level records in your basement, right? And all of a sudden we have these bedroom producers that become huge stars. And we definitely did see how the industry had to adapt to it, and we see how the majors are still part of it, but they had to change their method all the way, right? Like they became more of a filtering system. They know they need to learn how and when to pick up artists and how to find this talent that is now just doing so much more on their own. So I think we're going to see something very similar with filmmaking, and I'm curious to hear your thoughts about that.
Yeah, what's interesting is I was around when we went from linear editing to non-linear editing. So very much the same. Like my husband went to USC Film School. It's like he had to cut his film. And then, Avid came.
You got your hands
Yeah, your hand
you had to do it
tactile,
with the
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so as we progressed in technology, what I love about this is this was sort of like also in dealing with real time, game engine, Unreal. And it was the idea that your team, your key creatives could actually see something together. And that was the starting point so that, are we all creatively on the same page? And, with computer graphics, it was like, if you wanted to see a render, it would take a long time. You go get some coffee, come back, still rendering. And so, with real-time content, real-time rendering, it became very quick. Now, with generative AI, it's like, I guess you can say instantaneous. So what's the difference is now, for example, I'm on a long-form project, and we're working on the animatic. So in most cases, animatics are someone scripting out the boards. Now, let's just pause for a minute, because all of my animation friends would still say, I like to draw the boards. To me, I had this conversation with a couple different directors. Some people liked the drawing, the reason why that storyboard process is really the filmmaker process. So it's really up to you how you want to do it. But to some degree, the boarding is not fully giving you full context of what's happening within the scene. Whereas today, you can have your animatic be completely like final pixel. You can see it in context. You can see where your characters are in the scene. And then you can have the conversation. So that's different, but that might not be good for everyone. And it's not just, and again, it just depends on how people sort of approach their process. But then it's like, this is the look, feel, this is how we want it to be. And that type of conversation is far greater to have that early on than like later. And I think that's the key unlocking point, especially with Gen AI, is that you can actually really know what you're looking at earlier. Almost instantaneous.
Yeah, I love this illustration. There's this visual. The other side of it is, though, when are you ever done? There was something that was nice about production when you're like, well, that's it. That was our last day of shooting, and now we go to post. And now it's like, well, you can be in production and post forever. Technically, someone has to just pull it away. That said, I think it's interesting because, the content will be, Doug Shapiro, if you haven't, I will plug Doug, he's a friend, but he's writing a book called Infinite Content, and it's basically this notion, it's like the Spotify problem, where as cost of production decreases and the speed at which you can get content out increases, the sheer quantity is going to increase to such a degree that how will we ever consume it all? And the reality is we're probably not going to. So that is where I also think on the other side of this line, which I would love to see someone also do the graph, is how are you actually going to market and find an audience? Because these tools, as much as I would love to put a YouTube video out there and be proud of it and all of that, but if it doesn't get seen in the flood of all the other content.
I like to say that there's only 10 places at any top 10 chart, right? Yeah. There's only top 10 artists, top 10 charting videos. And I think that's why the traditional industry, if you wish, is still going to have a very important role in surfacing what matters. So again, very similar to what happened with music.
Yeah, clearly we see word of mouth and something can go viral, but Hollywood, if they do one thing very well, it's like, when a Star Wars movie's coming out. Yeah. There's just no way to escape it. So, and I think that will continue. Now, whether it's still a $300 million marketing campaign or a $30 million marketing campaign, that $30 million marketing campaign will still have a massive impact compared to the person that made the thing that doesn't. And I think there's going to be interesting things, too, in terms of how I could create pre-roll ad spots. And there's a whole host of ways of it where AI could actually help filmmakers who might not even be thinking about the marketing outside of the distribution of throwing it on one of the networks. But I think that's going to be a huge part and role, especially if you want your content to get seen and discovered, that I hope more people start to think about. Right now, we're still in the making of it phase.
I would add that people always sort of ask, like, how much is it? How cheap is it? And I'm like, that's the wrong question. Because I think, to your point, it's more about, we know we can actually create the content pretty quickly. That's like the speed. So what else do you want to do in your world, right? How do you expand your world building? And I think that's really, really important versus just a singular piece. It will be the other sort of the web of like engagement to your audience. And yeah, I think that's going to be super important.
And can you guys imagine, I'm just adding a question off the bat here, can you guys imagine a new form of consumption emerging as well? Because if we face it, like what you're all saying, is that there's a lot of revolution happening in the production phase, right? But nothing that's new with marketing or consuming or streamlining everything out to the actual market, right? So can you envision any change there as well in distribution and consumption of content?
I mean, we're seeing vertical video stories and dramas. Yeah. I mean, Quibi obviously was probably a little bit too bleeding edge and maybe didn't, I mean, COVID didn't help it, but that's clearly becoming a real vehicle, if you will, for certain audiences. And I think, I mean, I'm not sure we could scale that to the masses, and maybe certain, I mean, I don't know if, I think there's a certain place for it. Now that's obviously something new, but I think what's interesting too is that if we go back to the industry and distribution, I mean, let's go back to, I don't know, let's just say take Disney. The last two big animated films they did, Zootopia 2 and now Hoppers is doing well. Okay, I have a new audience that suddenly loves Hoppers. When am I talking to them next? 3 years, 5 years,
No.
or when it's nostalgic?
Next week.
I mean, but that's the difference now, is that suddenly you could create, if you know you have a hit and you know you have an audience that's in that moment, you could suddenly say, let's get some content out now, let's build some shorts, let's build some things, let's keep the rhythm going, and maybe the industry doesn't become this secular or the cycle of 3 to 5 years for the sequel. I mean, honestly, take Stranger Things as I mean, if I went to Netflix and pitched Stranger Things and said, right now I'm going to make a 5-series or 5-season series over almost 10 years and hope that the audience still remains, like, that's kind of the Hail Mary of like pitching content.
I think there's a balance, because we've seen where it's like oversaturation is not good, but I think like K-pop Demon Hunters is a great example. Then get it to the theater, but it is a different experience from streaming at home to in person. I think because exactly what you're saying is what we were doing at DreamWorks with my team was we had we knew How to Train Your Dragon was coming out, but we wanted to pre-engage with audiences, or we wanted to keep the conversation going, especially for kids. Kids love, like, you know, if you have young kids, they're just playing that thing over and over and over a gazillion times. And so I think that could be a really interesting place where you can do that engagement follow-up and make it something meaningful. And, you know, I think that exists, and I think that's, it could be meaningful, but I think it's not for everything, you know, because I think oversaturation is a real thing.
Yeah, I don't know if I want shorts, dramatic vertical shorts for, say, a Queen's Gambit.
Oh. Yeah, or
Secession, or
Pit,
like, yeah,
the Pit.
Yeah. I mean, but I think, yeah, for kids' entertainment, family entertainment, different story.
Yeah, parents need something to entertain their children.
An interactive series. Christina, maybe you want to show your show reel now, because I think the next question is, how do we currently see the use of AI in professional filmmaking beyond just prompting? I think a lot of people are curious to know what are the actual capabilities beyond what most of the public already knows as prompting to receive a generated video. And if
Yeah,
you want to show
so I'll tee up the video we're going to show. It's so over at Secret Level. It's been, Jason founded it about 2.5, a little bit more than 2.5 years ago. Very prolific. He is constantly working on something. A lot of our originals come out of like things that we internally think about doing. So this is a compilation reel that includes ads, includes animation, includes some of our originals. And we also have our website's really has everything there you could probably watch. But we'll go ahead and play the reel. So that reel, like about 95% was synthetic. So
95.
yeah, maybe even
That's my
more.
question, how much hype?
Well, Will.i.am was he's real.
Can you
Sometimes.
talk a little bit about how you made that hybrid of the real will.i.am and the generated?
Yeah. What's amazing is we do tons of projects. He's one of our investors in the company, and he'll send stuff where he's shooting like himself in front of, just white psych, anything. Sometimes it's like, where did you shoot this? What country were you in? And we will put him in any situation. So it's pretty amazing, the hybrid. There's a video coming out soon that it's pretty phenomenal. And then this is a little early. You guys can take pictures, but the other thing that we realized as we were going, and we're one of the premier AI native studios and production companies, is that there's going to be a talent drain, meaning like we need more professionals. We need more people who can actually do the work and do it well. And our belief is that if you come from craft, you come from that education of filmmaking, that's essential. You start there. And then, so we really wanted to create a secret level academy, which allows for folks that are professional to learn from professionals. So this is a really good, I was able to get a huge discount off of that. I think runs $1,200 or something, but I think with that code, and it's like $550 or something crazy like that.
And I think this is such an important subject because our generation, us sitting here, I think we have a very big responsibility because we know the craft before this new technology. And I guess you can imagine kids in 5 years from now might not have access to this knowledge if it's not part of the process anymore, right?
Yeah.
So it's very important.
The other QR code is just if you are interested in the tech and entertainment space. I'm partners with the CTO, the Creative Tech Orbit, Carolyn Giardina, who is a former Variety senior editor, tech editor. She puts out a lot of in-depth coverage. So her hope is to really get beyond the headlines and really kind of talk through the craft and so the issues that are happening. Yeah.
Okay, great. The next question is, I think, Josh, it'll be great if you tell us a little bit about it. When did AI fail you? Like, when did you try to do something and you felt like that's it, that's like the furthest it can go in assisting in a creative workflow?
Wow. Every day that happens. I don't know when it first did it, but I think you start questioning whether it's you or the AI at this point, because it's progressed so much. It's like at the start you were unquestionably like this AI is not good enough to do what I want, and now it's like I don't know enough about how to get the AI to do what I want because I believe it can do anything. I think because I'm a developer as well, I find it's where we are on the development side feels like, you know, where we will be on the creative side in maybe 9 to 12 months' time. On the development side, it already is that assistant developer beyond a junior, which does ask separate questions in itself, but like it is already something that I cannot live without, and I would not want to do that job without AI by my side. It's not like even a decision in my head. It's like, without it, I lose a superpower. This is where it will feel for creatives before too long as well. Without it, I will lose my superpower to be able to see the things that in my head come to reality. So yeah, it fails me all the time, but I think if you're not really keeping up on it and learning constantly, then you start failing it the other way around as well.
Chad, I would love to hear your thoughts about this too.
When it failed me?
Or what problems are you trying to currently solve with what you're working on?
Well, I mean, this is an interesting one because, yeah, I could answer with my OpenAI hat, and I also answer as a creative myself. I think what's interesting is I'm finding that, I mean, basically because of the new vibe coding, let's just call it vibe coding, is insanely, it's like on a trajectory that is blowing my mind. And because of that, I used to have to rely on tools and wait for tools and wait for Adobe to offer an upgrade and so forth, or get a plugin for After Effects. And now I could basically vibe code that plugin in 10 minutes. And that's where we're at now, which is crazy to me that I can do some of these things. And so, for example, I was just sitting there, I'm like, oh, I'm sick of trying to describe camera moves. So I basically said, okay, I drew on my whiteboard next to my desk this little camera system where I'm like, okay, here's a person, here's two axes, rotational on the camera, just drew it and said, okay, I want to create a start position, an end position, I want to set a distance, and then I want you to turn this into the ideal prompt for whatever engine or model I'm using. It wrote that in less than 5 minutes. And then I started testing the prompts. I'm like, this is better than any prompt I've ever written to describe camera motion. And I'm like, and camera motion has been a problem forever, it felt like, in prompting with these tools. And so I think that's what's interesting is if you're a technical director in a department, the ability you have now on a crew or in a production to create tools for your artists is staggering. And I think this is where it's interesting from you all's standpoint too, with the tools that you're providing, is also how you open up those tools for even others to create on top of. And it's going to be a fascinating area of the business that is, I think we're just at the beginning phases of. But that said, I think the biggest struggle I have is just like, you know, again, it's just like, you have infinite options. I like to call it the Cheesecake Factory problem. Like the menu has everything and I want nothing. Like, you know, at some point, the artistic journey really needs those walls and those limits. And I really like to have to fight for that yes. And if the tools make everything so easy, are we just going to get a lot of watered down art and a lot of watered down creativity? And I think that's the thing that we talk about a lot internally, is how do you keep these systems not just making derivatives, and so that we're going to fill the world in 2 years with just a sea of the same. And I think that's the struggle that I fear that's with AI.
Can you tell a little bit about how you're trying to solve this issue? It sounds very intriguing.
I want to know how you solve that one as well.
I mean, I think some of it goes back to how do you get our humanity into the storytelling. And I mean, it's funny because we're working on a feature film of the Critters short right now. And the longest part to date actually has been to lock the script. Yeah. We spent over 6 months getting from the initial draft to what I call a shooting draft. We could have put it in ChatGPT, we could have done some of those things, but obviously with the Writing Guild and the Writers Guild, there's some rules there that.
And I don't think it would have been as good.
No, especially then. I mean, at that time, even regardless, but that still takes time. You have to let your creativity, you have to let it breathe. You have to let it gestate a little bit and to kind of walk away from it. So I think, I look at gosh, I mean, going back to how we're going to solve this, I don't know. But I do think just because it's easy and just because we can teach, we can teach all the dogs in the world to speak doesn't mean we're going to like anything they have to say. And I think as much as I love the idea that we can give democratized creativity to everyone, it doesn't mean that everyone wants to sit down and make a movie. I mean, I really don't. Now, they're going to be able to make shorts, and they're going to be able to make little things that they can share with their friends. And I think we're going to get a lot of that. But I think crafting a really good story that's worth watching, that emotionally hits me and speaks to me or speaks to volumes of people, that's still hard work, and it probably is going to take a team, not just an individual. And I think that's going to be the difference, is how do you build tools for teams and those professionals versus the mainstream. And even at OpenAI, that's what we struggle with. ChatGPT is used by, almost 1 billion people now? I mean, it's crazy. But there's not 1 billion filmmakers on the planet and that really want to make a long-form story. So how do you design for both?
Very interesting.
And I would say with that too, because with your question, I was looking at it a different way. It's like the need for fantastic writers, screenwriters, still exists. Because I don't know, I mean...
In a way, maybe it's more important than ever.
It is the most important thing, absolutely. The meaning of a really good story will be that much more important. Yeah. So that's why the headlines are just the headlines. It's not, people can feel secure with you have something to say, you have a story, you have a craft. I mean, the process of, writing and telling something is hard. It's hard work. My husband's a screenwriter, I know, and he wrestles with it. Some people, you can use GPT or whatnot as research, but it's not telling the story in that sense. Now, can it? Will it evolve to that? I don't know if we do we care about that or not. That's a whole other panel discussion about, it's algorithmic versus predictive and blah, 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 whatever.
Last question, looking into the future, interesting to hear your perspective. If you think about 3 years from now, how would film production look like? In terms of team size, process, budgets, how do you imagine it changing from what it is today?
I think we've been saying it. I feel like last year, a lot of people were talking about smaller teams. I think that last year I was talking about the renaissance of the independent film, which is great because I remember the days at different film festivals. It's always exciting because you get to hear and see something brand new. I'm excited. I'm able to come and see films at South by. I think that there's going to be a lot of disruption. I think that as humans and where we are, we need to lean in and not let anything take over our humanity. If there's something that bothers you, hey, we live in the United States of America. Please use your voice. And I think that it's going to be really, really interesting. I think at the end of the day, story is going to be king, as always, or queen. And I think that we'll see the disruption of everything from audience fragmentation to what are we really wanting. And I think as humans, it's built in our DNA. We want story and we want engagement, and I think in person will be just as important as whatever we see on our screens. And then I get excited about folks getting upskilled. This is your time to lean in and have agency, get educated, learn, and then decide if you want to do that professionally.
Amazing. You want to add anything?
3 years from now?
Yeah.
So far away.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't even.
No,
we can look at a year and a half.
It is insane when you think in AI speed, because every 6 months, even every 4 months, it seems like we're hitting a leap. And as someone once said, when you're on an exponential curve, wherever you are is always the same curve looking up. That's kind of, so what we can do today, 18 months, we're going to be able to do twice as much, and then another twice as much. So 3 years, I would say, the difficulty of making a shot versus making a scene, we're going to get away from making a shot and that being hard. Then it's going to come down to now, can we make a really good scene? Can we tell a really good story with dialogue, with a rich performance, and can we actually get it to direct the camera and multiple actors or talent, if you will, for lack of a better word, on screen to do that Thanksgiving table? I think we'll definitely hit that, but we're not quite there yet.
Because it was like 4 seconds. Oh, we got 4 seconds. Then it was like 8 seconds. And then when I did that ETC project, it was like, you can't do anything more than 8. And now it's like 15. It's only going to increase like how long your role can roll.
Well, and the other thing, I mean, I'm curious too, the memory, the access to, the ability to have a tool even read your script, know what your script is, so it knows it's like a part of your team, and so it goes, oh, I see what shot you're working on. You're working on scene 36, the shot, but I know what came before it. I know what's coming after it, so it knows how to even frame what it needs to generate in that moment because it has the context. I think we're going to get there too. I'm curious, like.
Yeah, I would say that those sort of agentic aspects of it are going to be phenomenal for filmmakers to help with consistency, help them when they do need to make a shot that matches all their other shots. I think that's super exciting. I come from a background of indie filmmakers, people trying stuff out, people trying to do things that felt impossible to them. AI to me is just like a kid in a candy store with that aspect. It's like more voices coming forward, more people being able to try things, the playing field being far more even. I know the kids that were using early versions of 3D, doing movies and having a voice, it never looked like the big screen. They're going to be so much closer to the big screen, so much closer to actually telling the story they want to tell. So I'm super excited about that. But I think the real utility of it is as a tool, as you say, the agentic side, being able to actually understand the scope of your project and being able to help you with all of the sort of parts that are impossible to you. It's going to be an amazing period, and I'm very much on the positive side of AI, but I think there's huge chances for it to transform everything in such a positive way for the new people coming into the industry as well.
Amazing. So we have 3 more minutes, so we have time for 1 or 2 questions if anybody wants to ask. Go ahead. I think you can use the mic there if you want.
My name is Rex. I'm with CyberTalk TV and Pod TV. I'm a journalist here. And we're on Roku, but just wanted to kind of dovetail on your conversation here, my personal experience, because I've been a professional writer and journalist for 8 years. I was able to learn how to train my agentic AI assistant in my voice, in my writing skills, and it took me a long while to train it, and it actually doesn't try and replace what my thoughts are. The other thing is you hear AI hallucinations. A lot of that has to do with general information that AI grabs off of the internet, and it actually exposes people who are not experts in their own field, but they're pretending to be, and you can read right through that. So I just wanted to see if you had a similar experience when you first started using it. It looks fantastic until you read it, and then you read the details, and it's so vague that there's no real knowledge of, at least in my case, I write about threats posed by surveillance capitalism, tech-based hybrid warfare, and other issues that we're facing with technology, but I'm also an app and platform developer. So that's what I noticed with it first.
Was there a question? Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, the early systems definitely hallucinated quite a bit. I mean, obviously, controlling that and reinforcing it to be much more personal to either your data set and your input, these are things that we clearly are trying to improve upon. But in a way, it's like Midjourney with 7 fingers. It was like always the joke, oh, these AI systems, everyone, that was the quick way of telling. We passed that. So these systems are going to definitely learn your style, your way of thinking, your approach. And the more you teach it about your kind of philosophy, if you will, it will do a better job at understanding and being able to kind of be an assistant to you. But, that's a whole nother topic. I mean, I feel like that we could go on a whole nother panel on that one.
Context is going to become very important.
Yeah.
Next question.
Hi, my name's Ron Cicero. I'm from Kiln, LA. I come from a live action background. I own a production company. I actually produced a spot for Jason back in the day as a line producer. But When, of course, I first heard about AI in general, I was like, oh my God, it's over, right? It's completely over. Then I started meeting some AI storytellers, and in the branded space especially, it seems to be incredibly difficult to explain to people what the tools actually are and how they can actually be used. And some of it is this sort of challenge with, companies like OpenAI that are talking about how great their product is, but on the other hand, that's scaring the hell out of people. So how do you guys talk about these products, and how do you sort of start breaking down these sort of traditional walls? Like we just had a project now we were going to pitch on. They're like, well, but that's not cut out for AI. And it's like, well, again, that's because of the perception of what AI can and can't do, and a lot of the fear that comes along with it. So is it just time?
I don't know. I mean, Artlist, you guys had a Super Bowl ad that said I could make a commercial pretty quickly.
Yeah.
But no, I
days.
do think, literally half of my job is going out and dispelling misinformation and really trying to say, level set. Here's what these tools can do. But it is true, many brands, and I mean, we don't really we're not in the production business, but I hear friends and people that work with our tools, like that brands come and they just say, well, you just hit the magic button, right? And then it just makes the ad. And you're like, well, no, it doesn't work that way. It's like, it's every shot is curated and crafted and generated hundreds of times. I mean, think your secret level Coke thing, if I remember what Jason said, it was like 40,000 generations or some, it's a lot of take.
It's not a silver bullet, it's not a push button, but that's very basic, though. I mean, I think that's...
You would think, but it's
just education.
Yeah.
You're onboarding folks to it. It's like...
Is there any tips?
It's not cheap necessarily. I mean, if people want to charge nothing, they could charge nothing, but it takes craft. It takes people. It takes vision. It takes creative vision to know how you want to craft whatever it is.
Yeah, fair enough. Thank you. Also, we had a meeting that pushed till Tuesday. I have about 2.5 pounds of fresh chocolate chip cookies. So if you guys are interested, I will set them over there. Otherwise, I'm going to eat them. So anyway, thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. I think we're out of time, right? So I want to thank everybody. Thank you, Christina, Chad.
Thank you.
Thank
Josh.
you all.
Thank you,
Thanks for
everyone.
coming.
Thank you, everybody. Have a great week. And